best profile in it, Caroline.
Thank you.
And I will get your slideshow up without further ado.
Okay.
When I say I'll get your slideshow up, that would rely on me not having lost connection to my remote desktop. So just bear with me. Do you want to introduce yourself while I find it?
Yeah, I can do
Caroline.
that. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's good. So I'm Caroline Cannon. I am the Strategic Lead for Inclusion and Specialist Support Services from Middlesbrough Council. Just a little bit of background in terms of what services we have within my area. So we have our SEND assessment team, we have inclusion officers, we have an alternative provision service, our education psychologists, we have an early year special support service, a hearing impaired and visually impaired service. We also have our children with disabilities team, and we house the local offer. So probably similar to some SEND services across the country. So quite a large service really. So I'm here today to talk about an outcomes framework which has been developed at a regional level. And the reason why I'm here from Middlesbrough is because I've sort of chaired and led on the meeting. So we've got the presentation, sorry, this piece of work. So we've got the presentation up. So I think we can move to the next slide now, please, Amanda.
Can you see that now, Carol?
Yeah, I can see. Move to the next slide. We're having some technical.
We are having some technical problems. I was connecting. I lost connection. I'm going to try and get it up via a different route. I think trying to do the remote desk and Teams is obviously too much. Right, can everybody see that now? And is that the slide that you would like, Caroline?
We can move to the next slide.
The development of the SEND outcomes framework?
Yeah, yes, please.
Can you see that now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's gone too far along. So it should just be the second slide now.
That's what I can see. So if you're still seeing the third slide, there's obviously a delay. And you see the right one?
No, so it should be the second slide after the
so I've got who was involved and how did you get started?
Yeah, that's where we are. Okay, that's great. Okay, so yes, so in terms of our piece of work, so what we've done, we set up a regional group within the North East to look at how we could develop an outcomes framework, and those people involved in the regional group were SEND leads, data leads, health colleagues and social care colleagues. Because the regional group was chaired by myself, we also had our Middlesbrough Parents Forum, which is Parents for Change, so we have representation of parents on our group. And in terms of how we got started, so we pulled together our regional group and looked at what was actually happening across the North East in terms of development, in terms of looking at good practice, how we were using data, what was working really well, what wasn't working so well. We discussed the key things that we felt was required within an outcomes framework, and we looked at various models that were sort of starting that development journey. We also, so from that information, we had a sort of shared understanding of where each area was in terms of their sort of development, and we understood where we all wanted to get to. In terms of the outcomes framework, we also considered what families were telling us in terms of what was really important to them for outcomes. So that information was either through parent conferences, surveys, parent events, with drop-in sessions. We hold drop-in sessions across Middlesbrough for our families. And we also considered what young people were telling us in terms of events that we were holding for young people, and in terms of what was really important for them. The group also looked at national, regional and local research. So we did a lot of work to look at what families were saying nationally and regionally in terms of what was really important for them in terms of outcomes for children and young people. So through all that work, we developed an action plan with priorities of what we wanted to achieve as a regional group. So we can move forward to the next slide now, Amanda, please. So these are just some of the things that we wanted to achieve. We do have quite a detailed action plan, but we wanted to develop a robust data system. And we wanted to have a clear understanding of progress towards education, health and care outcomes across all agencies. And what we wanted to develop was robust monitoring processes that we could use. Obviously, all that data would help us improve the local offer and services and provision for children, young people and their families. We wanted to standardise outcome reporting at an individual level, which would enable us around our performance management of outcomes to be established, and it would improve the experience for children, young people and their families. And that was, one of the key things that we were trying to improve. And we wanted to standardise outcome development and reporting across our agencies. So all that information that we would pull together would help in terms of our commissioning intentions, and it would also help in terms of workforce development and support that we needed to put in place once we could analyse what was coming out from our data collection. And I have said numerous times, and I did say in the previous group, that what we developed, we had to sort of question ourselves quite a number of times of was it too simple, because it seemed to be quite a straightforward process in terms of the length of time it took, because we did think this would take us quite a long time, and we're still questioning whether the tool is perhaps not sophisticated enough, but this is our first implementation of the tool, and we will continue to review it as we move forward. Can we move to the next slide, please, Amanda?
Sorry, is it still really slow in moving forward for you?
So in terms of development of the outcomes framework, as we know, children and young people have lots of different outcomes. And to have a framework that we could measure, as I said, we needed to keep it quite straightforward. So through the research that we did, we actually took the key headings which families and young people were saying. So those things around making choices and decisions, the development of independent skills, being relaxed and happy, taking part in education and learning, develop a relationship with friends, being as fit and healthy as they can be, happy with life at home, have a positive transition from school or college, or have a positive transition towards adulthood. We have a longer list, but through the work of the group, we really sort of trimmed it down to have to finalise the list with this amount of headings. We felt that we could condense some of the things that we were looking at, which would make it a slicker and more manageable tool, and more meaningful for families and young people. Do you want to move to the next slide, please, Amanda? So in terms of how it's been embedded, so I'm going to talk about from Middlesbrough's perspective, because we have got a regional group, but there's been a lot happening, obviously, with COVID. We're all at different stages. We have had a recent meeting of the regional group, but prior to that, I think our last meeting was the week that we went into lockdown. So things have, everybody's at different stages in terms of implementation and where they are. So in terms of Middlesbrough, we've built a form into our Capita system to help record the data. We've used the outcomes framework and updated our annual review documentation. So it sits at the front of our annual review documentation. All that documentation was updated and sent out to schools and settings ready for September this year. To support with the changes to the documentation, we delivered a lot of training for school staff and college staff and our case officers. We did find that certainly our school staff were quite anxious about potential changes to the document because they felt that it could be very onerous, some of the things that we might be proposing. But we have had very positive feedback from our school staff in terms of the changes that we implemented and the outcome framework, because they can see at a glance how you can see the progress that a young person has made or is making. So we have had positive feedback to the framework. In terms of our colleagues across the region, everybody is working at different stages. Since we set up the regional group, we have had different people from across the region come to the meeting, because we've had, obviously, there's been new staff come in to post. We've had staff off for various reasons. We've got people who've moved jobs, so we've got people working at different stages. Also, in terms of capacity and resources, people's data systems are also at very different stages. So we are working together as a regional group still to share the good practice and areas for development, but we do understand that we're still quite a way off in terms of being able to benchmark this piece of work across the region, and we will carry on working together to hopefully get to that point at some time in the future. In terms of what's next for us within Middlesbrough, we have, as part of our quality assurance framework for education, health and care plans, and for SEN support plans and for annual reviews, we have what's called SEND challenge days, which take place at a number of points throughout the year. And within those SEND challenge days, we do some deep dives into education, health and care plans, the quality of those plans, the quality of the outcomes, the advice that's been written to support those plans. And we look at that as a quality assurance group with membership from education, health and social care. One of the things that we're going to do as part of our SEND challenge day is to have an outcomes challenge day next year, and that'll take place. And during that day, we'll be able to analyse the data that we've collected through this first phase of implementation of the framework. We'll also use feedback from families and from young people in terms of the new framework and what they've thought about it, and if there's any changes we need to implement. We'll also use feedback from schools and settings as well to consider how robust the framework is, and again, if we need to consider any further developments. And we'll look at using the data to support local developments in terms of training and support for our settings, our schools and settings. If there's any identified gaps in provision, etc., we'll use that to support those local developments. And our plan within Middlesbrough is to embed the framework within our SEND dashboard. So there's a lot of work ongoing at the moment to make sure we can embed it into our dashboard, but aware that we might need to change some of this as we review it in May. So we're going to just look at the tool now. As I said, it is very simplistic, but we think it, well, we have had positive feedback from it. And in the previous, well, we're just waiting for it to load. In the previous workshop, people asked if they could use the tool, and we're very happy for people to use this tool. We're very happy to share it.
I think it's finally coming up. There you go.
Okay, so as you can see, so this is our SEND outcomes framework. So you can see down the left-hand side all the areas which are mentioned in the presentation, things like making choices, decisions, developing independent skills, etc. And then you can see across the top we have education outcome, progress against that outcome, health outcome, progress against that, social care and progress against that outcome. So if we click into the first box, so the education outcome, so we would expect a review process that through discussion that some of those outcomes, the specific outcomes for the young person, would fit into some of these key headings. So if it does, you would click on, if it's saying making choices, you would say yes. And then you'd go to the next box, and then you would identify the progress made. And it might be that there's been full progress, or the expected outcomes been achieved. And there's also where the child or young person hasn't achieved the progress that's been expected, and you would click into that box, and that's all pulled through into our data set. We would eventually have all that built into our data set. And it's the same for health. So health, it might come under the same heading, and the same for social care, and it might not. If it's a no, you just click into no. And then as we scroll down to the sort of bottom of the page, you can see we've got 4 pathways here. And we have questioned whether we should have the health and wellbeing pathway in this document, because it's very much should be part of the whole holistic offer. So we had it in, and then we took it out, and then we put it back in again, and we'll consider that these pathways are our outcomes challenge day in May next year. But the purpose of having these pathways at the bottom is obviously a child or a young person can be on more than one pathway, could be on all pathways, and they'll be on different pathways at different stages of their education. And this is just a tick box on whether to say yes or no, or just a tick to say whether that child or young person is on that particular pathway or pathways. And it's used as a bit of a tool to get people to think about through meetings about the various pathways, so that you can start to think about the outcomes. So if somebody, you should be able to plan an outcome at the earliest of stages if it's around employment or independent skills. We shouldn't be waiting till a young person is perhaps 13, 14. We should be thinking about these things very early on. Alongside that, those pathways would also help us identify some commissioning intentions. But as I said, we're still not quite 100% sure in terms of whether we should have the 4 pathways there, or if we need to change it. This is the first phase for us, and it's just been implemented in September, and we will make any changes next year. So that's our tool. I'm very happy to take questions or hear any comments that people might want to give.
Oh, we've got Joanne with a hand up.
Hi, Caroline. It was just a question about when you've got a pathway identified, is there any kind of guide on what that pathway would look like? For example, an employment pathway or an independence pathway?
In what do you mean in a guide on what it looked like? I think that would be the discussion at the annual review. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose it's a discussion at the annual review process. At this point, we would just be collecting that overarching data.
Right.
We wouldn't be drilling down into, at this point, drilling down into the sort of specifics around that. It is about getting people to think about, you know, the range of pathways at the earliest stages for young people. But we would be wanting to collect to help our commissioning intentions, you know, information about what people are actually wanting to do. So it would help us reshape our I think I said in the previous workshop, our post-16 offer, so looking at more supported internships, looking at that within our specialist settings, because at the moment, within our area, our young people go off into other settings to do a supported internship when they leave school, and we really want to sort of start that at an earlier stage.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Do people want to switch their cameras on when they ask questions? We should be safe enough in this smaller group, hopefully. Raj, did you want to speak to the question that you put in the chat about agreement?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. It's an amazing piece of work. I'm really.
Oh, thank you.
Really,
yeah, we keep thinking it's
really,
very simple. But
I can speak, you know, from where I am in Newham, because we've struggled to get effectively any kind of agreement between services, you know, and what I'm seeing here is you somehow straddle the balance between what you might do in an individual review with the individual outcomes, you know, the personalization to some form of standardization. So my question is, how did you do it? You know, how did you get to that standardization? Because we've struggled here. We've struggled, you know.
I think we have very good partnerships with our colleagues across education, health and social care. We have very good partnerships with our schools and settings. In terms of our quality assurance process, so which links to the development, so the sort of SEND challenge days, it's a multi-agency approach, so everybody is part of that, colleagues from health and social care. So it's a natural next step, if you like, to make sure that the outcomes framework matches that. So I think it is that we have good partnerships, and I think because the tool is relatively straightforward, we've had the buy-in from schools and settings, so it's going to be very interesting to see what parents and young people are going to feed back to us in terms of, you know, how they've sort of seen it being used, and how they've sort of felt part of that, and you know, what is it meant to them.
Thank you.
Louise or Helen, do you want to ask your questions?
Hi, yeah, I'm going to say I'm Louise. So I'm really new into the DCO role. I've only started last month, so very quickly learning virtually. Really like the framework that you've put together. I think it looks like a really good and productive piece of work. My question was just around who holds that. Is it something that collectively everybody can access from each service, or is there a central point that takes a lead on that document and sort of like the coordination of that?
So the sort of the overall, so it'd be part of the annual review process, so everybody would have access to the updated document. In terms of the sort of the high level collecting of the data, we would hold that within our data system, but we've developed a shared dashboard with health, so we're just updating that at the moment and pulling through the high level information. Again, I think it's the partnership, so we see it very much as a collective, but because we would hold all the data and the sort of lead on the education, health and care plan, the annual review process, etc., it's all built into our system, but we have those great partnerships with the DCO and colleagues across a range of settings. Yeah,
that's fantastic, because my experience in other areas prior to this role was about the SEND dashboards, and then obviously that was quite a collaborative piece of work that was ongoing. So I think for me it was just wondering where this fits into that, but that's answered it really well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do just another thing. We do have a data quality and outcomes work stream. So we've got a range of partners within that work stream, and this was like a next step as part of that work stream to have a sort of task group linked to the regional outcomes framework. So that's helped with the sort of partnership working as well.
Super. Thanks for that answer, Caroline. Amanda, I've seen your hand. I'll just get Mary to speak to the question that she's put in the chat first, and then I'll come to you if that's all right.
Yeah, hi, my name's Mary Mulvey-Oates. I'm currently doing a bit of work with the Disabled Children's Partnership to support them on looking at following up their survey on Left in Lockdown, and just interested in understanding any ways that you pull any health data into your dashboard. Are you able to bring in the sort of activity data into your dashboard to sort of link up between the different services to understand how frequently children are accessing services or able to access different therapies, for example?
Yes, we've done a huge piece of work on that, which I could talk for hours about. I think it was in the first Children with Disabilities data newsletter. Might have been July
we did
last
a case
year.
study on it.
Yeah, there's a case study there, and we have got real sort of that high level data, so we can see when, you know, what therapies young people have been accessing, when they've been accessing them. You know, we're drilling down into you know, did they go to that appointment on a Monday? So is that every Monday? Is that affecting then the education? And sort of the next step for us is about how can we sort of reshape that so that people aren't missing out on their education because of the health appointments, etc. So we have got very detailed the data newsletter. It was the first newsletter that was produced last year, and I'm sure it was July last year.
I can send Mary that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I would say to you, Mary, is it's not going to help you with anywhere else. Nobody else submits data like Middlesbrough. So it's about what gets uploaded to the community services data set, and they've done a huge amount. In fact, NHS Digital complain about how much data Middlesbrough upload to the community health service data set. So do be excited about it, but don't expect it to lead you to lots more data from other areas. I'm sure it will come, but it's not there yet. Amanda, what did you want to ask Caroline?
Yeah, hi Caroline. I just you're using Capita, which is the same system that Milton Keynes uses. So I didn't know whether or not you were using their Send portal as well for organising all your EHCs and annual reviews, and whether that your framework inputs into it that way. So
the hub, the Send hub. I'm just so I'm clear. So is it the portal that they've developed where you can hold the education, health and care plan and people can input into it?
Yeah.
No, we're not using that yet. And no disrespect to Capita, but we didn't like what was developed because we've seen a different model, and we've had. There's nobody on Capita from.
No, you're safe, Caroline.
So we did have a number of presentations from Capita, which just we weren't inspired. And there was a different organisation who had a really good tool, but it didn't talk to Capita. So I think we're waiting on Capita to develop what we need them to develop. So we do want that portal, but we want the right portal.
Yeah, I was just wondering where you collect all that information in together. So at the moment.
So there's different forms that you can build into the Capita system.
Okay, yeah.
So we've done a lot of work with Capita to build in what we need into the reporting system. But an actual EHC hub, as I say, I think there's still a bit of work to do to make it accessible and great for families to be able to use. It just looked a bit dry.
Yeah, but can I just say simple is great, because what's the point in complicating things? So don't keep saying I think it's too simple. It's just not too simple. It's great. So thank you.
Oh, thank you
for sharing.
I think the other thing is it can be that, any local area that's got an outcomes framework, you can just, you can just cut and paste it in, can't you? So it's really helpful in that respect. Caroline, are you happy to share your, I'm just thinking about the sort of some of the things that people might want to follow up on. Are you happy to share your annual review when we share the tools? That would be great if you can send that to me. And Joanna's asked if you would mind putting your email in the chat, as she'd love to follow up with you.
Okay, I think I am part of the invite, so I don't know if you just want to take it out the invite appointment.
Caroline doesn't spend a lot of time on Teams, so are you all right if I put your email in the chat, Caroline? Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'll do that. So, and I can do that now because I'm not showing my screen. And sorry, have I got any new hands up? I think I've got Amanda and Joanne, but I think they're legacy hands or the hand of history, as somebody said yesterday. Any other questions? Any follow-ups from anybody? Or are you all very desperate for your lunch now? Let me very quickly cut and paste Caroline's email for you. And then if you are, before you do leave, can you please, you will notice that I've put in the chat the link to the feedback form. So if you could please follow that link, because DFE do like us to convince them that we've spent their money wisely. So we have to make sure that we've got feedback from people about how the event's gone and whether it's been useful for them or not. And also, to be honest, we're always looking to improve and make sure that it's as positive as experience. I know online is, has got lots of pitfalls. So we learn every time we do one of these, and really value people's feedback about anything that we could do differently or better. So do the feedback form. Any final questions for Caroline? I think you're good, Caroline.
Great. I'm very pleased that I didn't get kicked out just with the technology. So thank you very much for inviting me to come on.
And yeah, sorry, just to answer Mary's question, what we'll do is when we upload all of the recordings and the slides and everything, we'll and the tools, we'll make sure that we include a link to the data bulletin, which talks about what Middlesbrough have done in terms of their health data. So thank you so much, Caroline. That's been absolutely fabulous. People have really valued that.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting me. Have a nice Christmas, everybody.
And you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Yes,
Don't
Merry
forget your
Christmas.
feedback form.